just one big story, isn't it?
Everybody, welcome to the Story Connection. I'm your host, Donna Wilberg. Today we are welcoming a woman who has her fingers in all sorts of pies. She's an associate artist with Colt Run Creations. She's directed the play Adoration of Dora and has performed in a plethora of local production. She can be seen regularly on TV as an on-air host for KVIE and has a personality that won't quit. Welcome the one and only Kellie Raines.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Well, I have expected a little trill right there. You do sing too, don't you?
I sing, maybe not as publicly as I should, but I do sing.
Well, you've done all sorts of things, but one of the things that you just completed was your first direction of the Adoration of Dora. Please talk about that.
It was a thrill. I'm new to directing, so this is my second full-time production, and it's an extremely challenging script. And it is the story of surrealist photographer Dora Maar, who was at the height of her art in the early 1920s in Paris. She was France-born, but she was raised in Argentina, and she came back as a young woman. And when she was at the zenith of her career and her art, she met none other than Pablo Picasso.
Oh my goodness.
And he's arguably the most notable and important artist of the modern century. And with her relationship with him, her art got pushed to the wayside, and she was with him for about 9 years. It was a very tempestuous relationship. He was very vampiric and domineering to her, and she actually stopped doing a lot of her art. He told her that photography was an inferior art form to painting. So the story of Adoration of Dora is a lot about her struggle to maintain her own identity as an individual as well as an artist in the realm of Picasso.
How interesting. What a fascinating story. So how did you come about directing? How did that happen for you?
Really exciting. I'm an associate artist with Colt Run Creations, and Colt is K-O-L-T, and that stands for Kelly Ogden and Lisa Thu. They are the founding members of Colt.
Oh.
Yes, and the script was given to them through different channels, but it's by playwright Lojo Simon, and it's a surrealist story telling the story of Dora Maar, and it requires a lot of interesting stagecraft, a lot of movement, a lot of images. And we're producing it in a found space. We do a lot of that. We don't have a home base. We're kind of vagabonds. We do found spaces in site-specific theater. And this particular production, we're staging in an old kindergarten classroom at the Sierra 2 Center in Curtis Park. And so we're using found space to inform the story. The story is informing some of the space. The stagecraft we're using is a little bit surrealist. We're using a lot of actor-manipulated lighting, play with shadows, conceptual art, a lot of movement and structural pieces as well.
That's just incredible. And I can just imagine the work that goes into that 24/7.
It's a lot of work. We opened in November, but we were in pre-production for about 4.5 months before that. So even before we had the actors, we were talking about how we wanted to create the art that the script was calling for. It required a lot of images, and I really didn't want to do two-dimensional images with projections, which would have made our life a lot more easier, but I wanted to create art in a story about art. So we have a lot of three-dimensional art pieces that our production designer, Nastasia LaRocco, created and designed for us that really evoke the images that the script requires as well as the surrealist medium that Dora Maar worked in.
So you've acted in a lot of productions, and I'm sure you've done other things in them as well. How did this prepare you for your first directing? That's a big career change.
It's a huge shift.
Yeah.
I come to theater first as an actor. I've been acting since middle school, and my parents would say since I was a child. I come to theater as an actor, so I also come to directing as an actor. So I think I have an actor's sensibility. Hopefully I know how to communicate with an actor because I know how I want to be communicated with.
Correct, yeah.
I have experience as an actor breaking down a script. So going to the other side of that and really conveying the playwright's intention and collaboratively working with the actor to fulfill that intention is what a director's job is, and I hopefully am doing that.
So you kind of answered my next question, which was, when did you know that you wanted to be an actress? So how did you start out when you were little? I mean, do you have memories of...
I do have memories,
Okay.
and my younger brothers
Do you
haven't
wanna
even,
share?
yes, my younger brothers will even tell you the story. I always did make-up-believe stories. I would act in them and, just have little scenes and vignettes, and it's probably a little personal, but my brothers would tease me that, oh, she's kissing the walls again, if that was a little romantic story that I was kind of creating for myself and a little vignette or scene that I was doing. I always loved the art of storytelling and very much a performative kind of medium. So as a child, I knew I wanted to be a storyteller. In school, I got involved in theater, and from there, it's just been my journey.
Have you written your own plays?
I've written 2 plays,
Okay.
one-act plays that were produced in my undergrad days at UC Davis, Miracle Fish and Saving Trophies. So I also write as well.
Good. Does sound really interesting.
They are really interesting.
Well, talk about them. What were they about?
Saving Trophies was my first play, and it is about a woman who had given away a personal trophy that she had won to an ex-lover, and he disappeared with it. So she was constantly in the search for him, and so she would go around, she was an artist, go to yard sales and thrift stores, and she would buy all of the trophies that she could find. And it's the idea of, we all win trophies, we all have accolades, and what happens to those tangible items once we leave the story? So there's an award with my name on it. What does that mean to somebody else later on in life? And so her idea was, if she saved all the trophies, she could end up saving her own trophy and finding it again and finding herself. And the idea is also, what are the real trophies? And at the end of the play, not to give too much away, but she ends up saving a person, and perhaps that's what the real trophy is.
Interesting. That's really deep, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you.
So do you kind of stick more to drama, or do you like humor? What's your forte?
I love it all. I love
Okay.
it all. I love comedy. I think I'm more drawn as an actor to doing drama. But I do love it all.
How about your writing?
My writing tends to be more dramatic, I think. It does tend to be more of a surrealist kind of poetic landscape. I think I do try to infuse humor into everything. I think some of the most compelling drama and comedy is where there's a touch of both. There's a pathos in comedy sometimes, and there's also humor in tragedy.
Yeah, very true. So what was your other play about?
The other play is Miracle Fish, and it's based on a story of a town in Guatemala who had fish raining out of the sky and nobody could explain it. And it's the story about a writer who's looking for answers in all kinds of oracles outside of herself, whether it's a crazy 8-ball or looking at the stars or any kind of deity that she was praying to. And there's also a little tiny toy that when I was growing up called a miracle fish. And it's a little red cellophane fish that when you hold in your hand, if it curls, then you're in love. Or if it curls to its side, then maybe you're angry and it gives you a sign. And so it's about a writer trying to figure out how things start and how things end. And within that, there's raining fish out of the sky and all kinds of little comedy of errors with her boyfriend and friends. But it's really about a story writer trying to find her own story and how it starts and the answers within herself instead of outside oracles.
Interesting. It sounds, you're so fascinating.
Oh,
You
that's
are.
kind.
You're such a
Thank you.
fascinating person. Okay, so you've kind of been in either theater or television or, something that kind of put you out there.
Yeah.
So when you started at KVIE, did you start out as a talent, or did you kind of ease your way into that?
I eased my way into it. I actually turned them down for a few years. I started in the then major giving department as an admin assistant. I had moved back to Sacramento from San Francisco to finish my degree in theater, and I was lucky enough to get a job at KVIE Public Television that allowed me to finish my education. And while my tenure there, I've moved on and done many different things, and I've started doing on-air talent. I've been doing that for probably about 6 or 7 years now.
And you do the pledge drives, the art auction.
I'm an auctioneer for our annual art auction
Okay.
that happens in September. I've been an on-air host for the KVIE Arts Showcase. I do some voiceovers, pledge talent. I'm also the technical director for our studio production, Studio Sacramento.
You just do it all. Is there anything that's kind of a favorite of yours? Is there anything that you feel that this is really where I'm the most comfortable and where I shine?
As far as performance or just at KVIE or anything in general,
Anywhere.
acting is my first love.
Okay.
That's my first passion. I think there, especially live performance, there's an energy exchange between the audience and the performers that I think is really important. It's a very communal activity. It creates a lot of dialogue that you can't necessarily recreate in other mediums that I really, really value.
Favorite role?
Favorite role? Well, it's my next role. I always say my favorite role is my next role. My best project is my next project. So they're coming.
Okay.
I love them all.
Hardest role? Is there anything that you really had a difficult time putting yourself in that character's head?
Yeah, the hardest role I actually performed this past year, it was in a play called God's Ear by Jenny Schwartz. And the play was a really challenging play in that it had virtually no stage directions. It was written in a very poetic form. And so you really had to mine in the script what your intentions were and what your tactics were. And it was a very dramatic role and a very difficult role to perform.
So do you get the jitters?
Absolutely. I'm nervous now. You can't tell I'm nervous now. I'm
No,
shaking.
you can't tell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Push your head into the chair.
I'm so nervous. Absolutely. But it's a good energy. I think
Yeah.
it's any performer gets nervous before they go on. I think it's something that you use.
Yeah. One thing that has always impressed me is the memory skills that you need to be an actor. You probably have so many words crammed up in your head.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot of work. I think a lot of people see the end product, but any actor, be it film or stage or even clowning, any kind of performance, there's all kinds of work that happens before an audience sees it. And memorization is just the first step. You can't get to the good actor candy, that I like to call it, until you have it memorized. And it's a lot of work.
Is there anything in particular that you do to prepare yourself?
I like to know why I'm saying the lines. So the first thing I do with a script when I'm performing is break down the intentions. There's always an intention behind everything we do and what we say. So it's easier to remember why you're saying, hello, would you like some coffee? If there's an intention behind it other than just offering coffee, it's always easy to memorize. I like to write out my words. I like to see it visually on a paper. I have to say it over and over and over again. So there's lots of tactics I employ when I'm memorizing a script.
Yeah. So being on the other side of the fence, as a director, what were some of the challenges that you had working with the actors or just, in general?
The most important lesson I learned is from a mentor, Rick Murphy, is because I approached it as an actor myself, but the other actors are not me. They have different experiences and they'll take in information differently. So it's communicating to 6 different actors, much like in Adoration of Dora, in 6 different ways, and finding the best way that works to get through with them. And just the challenge logistically of directing a play for Adoration of Dora. We directed it and staged it almost virtually in the round. So working on sight lines and motivations and movement and mostly communication.
Yeah. How much time do you put into the production? Is there a number?
There is not a number. It's it keeps. I recently wrote. It keeps me awake at night. I've shed a lot of tears there, and I've lost a lot of sleep. But I wouldn't want to do anything else. There's a lot of time. I mean, I work full time, and it's also a second full-time job when you're in a production.
Yeah.
You go home or you go to the rehearsal space, and you spend another 6-7 hours an evening working on that production until it opens. And for this one, it was a pretty extensive rehearsal period and pre-production process.
Yeah. You have no life.
That is my life, actually. People say it's no life. No, that is my life. I absolutely love it. I wouldn't want to do anything else.
That's so cool. So, do you have anything in the back burner that you're thinking about
I am
Serious?
writing something right now. I
Good.
want to write another full-length play. So I have the germination of an idea that I'm working on, getting little bricolage pieces of information and actually cohesively putting it together in a full script.
That's so cool. What about film?
Yeah,
Because
kind
you're
of.
really good
I
on
want
TV.
to.
You've got such a presence, Kelly, that just you shine, you sparkle, you shimmer.
I shimmer.
You shimmer.
Kellie Shimmer Raines. I like that. That's going to be my new stage name. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I've been toying with the idea of getting a reel together. I would like to try film. I like all mediums of storytelling, and if there's a right project for me, I look forward to doing that in the future.
Is there any particular thing that's going on in the world that, you sometimes think we could address that in such a creative way?
Oh, there's so much going on right now. I think the current issues with immigration. I think every issue involved with women and women's rights and equality, literacy efforts, and I think that we can do better by improving those situations for people. And I think storytelling is a great medium for that. Letting witnesses to the storytelling actually be active participants in it. I think there's opportunities there as well. And I think that all starts with education and literacy. And I think that's where our real resource and power can be, when we educate the people of the world.
I think that's great. And there's so many productions and films and different paintings that do strike the nerve or strike the heart. And you keep that with you. You hold that and it changes you.
Absolutely.
So I think, having a message sent through, whether it be a film or a play or a book or whatever, art.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous.
I remember when I fell in love with theater, there was a show that I saw, and right after I thought, I really don't like that show. And then when I thought about it, it wasn't the play itself that I didn't like. I didn't like how it made me feel. And as that sat with me, I didn't like how it made me feel because I knew there was something wrong with the message. And I think you can do stories about important events in life that are hard things to talk about, hard things to feel and face. But storytelling can approach it in maybe a safer way and actually get the message out even better.
So when you were a child, did you go to the theater all the time?
I did not go to the theater as a child. There was just make-believe at home. So I didn't see my first production until I was in high school.
Oh, what'd you see?
Actually, I saw Macbeth at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco.
So did you go home and act it out?
I went home and acted. I knew when I saw it, this is what I want to do. This is who I am, and this is the only thing I'll ever want to do, and I love it.
So you took theater in high school and college?
Took theater in high school, took it for a little bit in community theaters, and I stepped away from it for about 7 years. I went into a very corporate work life in San Mateo and worked and lived in the Bay Area. And
What did you do?
I did retirement communications for a mutual fund company, Franklin Templeton, in San Mateo. And I didn't do theater for about 7 years. And I woke up one day and I was miserable, and I thought, I'm going to go audition for something. And I didn't get the part, but it was the most important audition of my life because it reminded me of what I really wanted to do. And a few months later, I had left that corporate world and I went back to school to finish my degree in drama at UC Davis.
That's fabulous. And no regrets, I'm sure.
No regrets. It was the best decision I ever
Yeah.
made in my life.
Wow. So is there anything that you haven't done that you're thinking, one of these days I'm going to give this a try?
Musical theater. I want to take some training, some voice classes.
I heard you sing just a little bit, and it sounds like you've got a really awesome voice.
Well, I appreciate it. I need some ear training. I just need some musical training so I know what the different keys are. But that's a little notch on the list that I want to kind of conquer, my fear of that. I think it's another kind of storytelling that would be really exciting to do and challenging.
So first directing or acting?
Oh, acting is always my first love,
Okay.
yeah. So I would love to be in a musical. So we'll see.
Okay.
I like doing things that I don't know how to do. I like to be challenged that way.
So you're involved with the local arts,
Correct.
I'm sure. So do you see a shift in the way things are being received? Are there more small companies popping up? And it seems like there's quite a few plays going on.
There's a really vibrant theater community here in Sacramento. There's only 3 professional companies, I think. But that's just as far as they're in the union. There are several professional companies as far as the work that they do. Where I'm a home artist, associate artist, Cult Run Creations, we focus on fringe theater. We do site-specific theater, and we really focus on the stories that are untold in mainstream society. There are other companies doing really, really wonderful work, and we share a lot of resources. A lot of actors roam around, and they work at different theaters, and I think there's room for everybody at the table, whether it's comedy, drama, fringe theater, avant-garde, or mainstream. I think there's access for everybody, audience and players alike.
So talk about some of the productions you've done at Fringe.
One of my favorite productions that we did, Vinegar Tom by Carol Churchill, is about women in 1600s England who were persecuted for being witches. And they're persecuted because they were other. If you looked funny or you were old or you didn't conform to society, you must have been a witch. And so they were killed. And we performed this play in the old underground abandoned pool at the Elks Tower in downtown Sacramento. So it was an underground abandoned pool, which historically women were forbidden from being in. So there was a very meta kind of aspect to performing a play about women being persecuted and performing it in an actual space where women were prohibited from being. So we performed it in the deep end of the pool. The audience sat in the shallow end. When they entered the space, they descended from the street down a metal staircase. And
how fun.
It was great. We did a lot of soundscape and space work where the actors made their own sound effects. So it was a very theatrical event and very site-specific. That's one of the things we've done.
That sounds just so exciting.
It's really
fun,
exciting.
Just crazy fun.
Really exciting.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, but this is the portion of the show where if you've got information you'd like to share with the audience, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. Colt Run Creations, KOLT, runcreations.com. That is our website. You can find information about upcoming and past shows, our Twitter, our blog, tickets, any kind of information, coltruncreations.com.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now we've got information about the Story Connection.
The Story Connection airs the second and fourth Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our companion show, Paranormal Connection, airs the first and third Thursdays of each month. Each episode repeats the following Friday at 1:30 p.m. and Saturday at 5:30 a.m. Watch these programs online at the same airtimes by going to accesssacramento.org and clicking Watch 17. In the Sacramento region, you can see us on Comcast Channel 17 and on AT&T Channel 99. You can find previously aired shows on the Story Connection YouTube channel. For information on upcoming shows and previous Story Connection guests, go to storyconnectiontv.blogspot.com. You can contact us at storyconnectiontv@gmail.com, and don't forget, find us on Facebook, become a friend, and become a fan.
So, in the time that we have left, is there anything that you have inside that you would like to share with the people who are watching at home, and perhaps they'll share it with others? Is there anything that a message you want to put out there about what you do, how you do it, about Kellie?
Not so much about me. I think it's just about every human being. The play that I directed recently, Adoration of Door, is about finding your own voice. And it's hard to find your own voice and actually speak it amidst the cacophony of other voices telling you who you should be, what you should do, what you should believe. I think you really have to fight your own inner critic as well as the external critics and tell your own story and navigate your own story for yourself.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
We need to talk more often because you are so inspiring. Well, with the time we have left, I would really like to thank my fabulous crew because they come out here and they volunteer their time. So I've got Rick and Dave. David's not here, sorry. Don, Laura, Ted, Lorene, and Tony, who came in and volunteered earlier, and we couldn't put the show on without them.
And they're all so nice. They're great.
They're fabulous. So I'm sure you've got your volunteers and your in your community, and we also have ours, and we just absolutely love them. But I really want to thank you for coming on the show today and talking about what you do. Because, like I said, you know, I watch you all the time, and you're so fascinating.
Oh, you're so sweet.
And you sparkle.
Oh.
And I think that, you know, that projects out to people, and they take it, and, you know, it just, it's inspiring. So.
Well, that's really kind, and what
Yeah.
you're doing is inspiring too, because I
Wow.
love stories, and I really appreciate that you're telling people stories.
Well, thank you so much, Kellie. And with that, I am going to tell you all about my novels. You can go to my website. I write romantic suspense novels. I've got a new one coming out in November. So I've got The Red Chair, The Gray Door, and The Black Dress. So that comes out in November. So if you want to check it out, go to donnawilberg.com. And my last question is for the audience. What's your story? Good night.